Hello everyone from the Blue Media channel. Today we will closely get to know another great leader who changed the course of history. Baybars, the great Turkic ruler who expelled the Crusaders from the Middle East and inflicted the first heavy defeat on the Mongols, initiating the fragmentation of the Mongol Empire. In this first video of our series, consisting of 3 videos, we will closely examine Baybars, who prevented the extinction of Islam against the Crusaders and Mongols, and we will closely inspect the process leading step by step to his leadership. We would be very happy if you could support us by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and not forgetting to hit the notification bell. Let's get started then. The Mamluks, consisting of slave soldiers and referring to themselves as the State of Turkey in official documents, were initially governed by the Kipchak Cumans and later by the Circassians. One of the early Turkic rulers was Sultan Baybars, who came from the lands of Decisively Kipchak and would leave a significant mark on the era he lived in. Baybars, whose name means Great Panther or Great Leopard in Old Turkic, was born in 1223 in the Decisively Kipchak territories, among the Cuman Kipchak Turks. According to sources, he belonged to the Borlu or Borjali clan. Around the age of 14 or 15, when the Mongols invaded the Decisively Kipchak region, which includes today's Russia and Ukraine, they pillaged the areas and sold many people into slavery through the slave traders they collaborated with. Among those captured was Baybars, who would change the course of history and whom they might have executed on the spot had they known the extent of damage he could inflict. This marked the beginning of a life story akin to a movie. Ibn Taghribirdi, an Egyptian historian of Kipchak Turkic origin who knew Baybars closely, would describe him as follows. Baybars was originally from the Cuman Kipchak Turks. He was tall, broad, dark-skinned but lighter than Egyptians, with blue eyes and a small mark in one eye. His voice was powerful and deep. He was fond of the game of chavgan, polo. He was an excellent horseman, very brave but also quite harsh and impulsive. He adhered to the laws of Genghis and Turkic customs. He was generous in charity and good deeds. It's worth noting that the game of chavgan, a mounted combat game, would later be known worldwide as polo, especially after the British, who encountered the game during their colonization of India, introduced it to the rest of the world. After being captured, Baybars was first brought to Sivas, then to Aleppo and Damascus. There, a jeweler bought him, and later, he was purchased by Aladdin Aytekin al-Bunduqdari, one of the Ayyubid emirs in Hama. He joined the Mamluk unit composed of Turks and soon became one of their leaders. He was known as Rukn Baybars al-Bunduqdari among the Ayyubids and eventually became one of the most favored commanders of the Ayyubid Sultan Salih Ayyub. During this period, the Crusaders started to see Egypt, which was becoming a stronghold of Islam thanks to the Turkic warriors, as the major obstacle in recapturing the holy city of Jerusalem, which they had lost to Saladin. At this point, Pope Innocent IV encouraged and supported the French King Louis IX, who aspired to lead the Crusaders for war. The Crusaders aimed to retake Jerusalem. The Pope even contacted the Mongol Khan Guyuk for this purpose. The Ayyubids were already in decline, presenting an opportune moment for the Crusaders. However, they were unaware that many Turkic warriors, eagerly waiting under the command of Baybars, were keen to confront them. Thus, the confident Crusader French fleet under King Louis and his brothers Charles d'Anjou and Robert d'Artois entered Egyptian waters. The inhabitants of the city of Damietta, panicked by the arrival of the Crusaders, fled inland, allowing the Crusaders to easily enter and occupy the city. At this time, ignoring the threat posed by Baybars and the Turkic warriors, King Louis IX of France sent a threatening and insulting letter to the Ayyubid Sultan Salih Ayyub, stating, "As you know, I am the leader of the Christian nation, and I am aware that you are the leader of Muhammad's nation. As you are aware, the people of Andalusia used to give me valuable gifts and money while I herded them like cattle. I killed their men and left their women widowed. I took their sons and daughters as prisoners and left their homes empty. Consequently, I have spoken with you enough and given you advice. Therefore, even if you swear your strongest oath, visit priests and monks, and even carry fire as a symbol of the cross, none of these will convince me, and I will kill you in the place you love most on earth. If these lands become mine, it will be a gift to me. If the lands are yours and if you can defeat me, then you are superior. I have already warned you about my soldiers who obey me. They can fill the mountains and open fields, and their numbers are like pebbles. They have been sent to bring you death and destruction with their swords. After spending some time vacationing and resting along the Egyptian coast, the French's enjoyment was barely marred by some hit-and-run attacks. When King Louis's brother, Alphonse de Poitiers, arrived with reinforcements and news of Salih Ayyub's death reached him, Louis was convinced that the promised time had come. Thus, he began to march his army of nearly 30,000 soldiers towards Cairo. The Crusaders first attacked the Mamluk camp, shown by a traitorous Egyptian, where they killed the Ayyubid emir Fakhraddin Yusuf. Advancing further, the Crusaders approached the royal palace in al-Mansura, marking their first, albeit unpleasant, encounter with Baibars. When the Crusaders, led by Robert d'Artois, the Templar Knights, and English Crusader knight Count William of Salisbury, found the city gates open, they entered, dreaming of the loot they would find. However, they were met by Baibars' lightly armored, agile Turkic warriors and were largely slaughtered. Farasaddin Aktay, another Turkic commander, also joined the attack, leading the Crusaders towards a devastating defeat. Only 5 Templar knights escaped. Baibars' brilliant strategy resulted in the deaths of French King Louis's brother, Robert d'Artois, Count William of Salisbury, and Guillaume de Sonnac, a prominent Templar commander, in a house they had taken refuge in. Upon receiving news of the defeat and his brother's death, King Louis still attempted to use cunning, asking for Jerusalem and several cities along the Syrian coast in exchange for the city of Damietta he held. However, when the Turkic army rejected his offer and advanced towards them, he hastily attempted to flee with his army during the night. Meanwhile, in France, false news was deliberately spread, claiming the king was continuously conquering Islamic lands. However, as the truth eventually emerged, the French populace, who had high expectations of their king, experienced a moral decline. While the French army that managed to escape did so by ships, thousands of French who could not escape were captured by the Turks. Among the captives were the proud King Louis and his 2 brothers, with chains around their necks. However, Baibars chose not to kill him, but instead released him, his brothers, and about 12,000 soldiers to go to Acre, on the condition that they never returned to Egypt, in exchange for 400,000 dinars. After this battle, Baibars and the Mamluk commanders, realizing that Turanshah, the son of the deceased Ayyubid Sultan Salih Ayyub, began to see them as a threat, made the first move before the heir sultan could act against them permanently and assassinated Turanshah. In the subsequent period, Aybek al-Turkmani took power in Egypt, marking the beginning of another era of Turkish rule in Egypt. Thus, the Turks who seized power from the Ayyubids faced a significant rebellion by Bedouin Arabs, who claimed that they deserved the power that had changed hands from the Ayyubids more. The first rebellion began in 1253, when Bedouins in Egypt, claiming descent from Ali, united under the leadership of al-Sharif Hisnuddin bin Saleb. The rebels not only refused to pay their annual taxes, but also blocked land and sea routes, disrupting travelers and traders, and even encouraged the Ayyubid emir in Damascus to come and take over Egypt. When the situation spiraled out of control, Sultan Aybek al-Turkmani sent a cavalry of 6,000 men, led by Emir Farasaddin Aktay and Baibars, against the rebels, who numbered over 12,000. This force decisively defeated the rebels and dispersed other Bedouin Arabs gathering in different regions through a surprise attack. Most of the men were killed, and women and children were taken captive. Realizing there was no other way out, Hisnuddin bin Saleb sought pardon from Sultan Aybek al-Turkmani. The leader of the rebellion was imprisoned in Alexandria, and all those who joined him were executed by hanging. Following this, taxes on the Bedouin Arabs were increased, and a stricter stance was taken against them. Hisnuddin bin Saleb, who was later pardoned and released, rebelled again 2 years later with his followers. This time, after being captured, he was executed by drowning in prison during Baybars' era on his orders. Over time, Sultan Aybek, who had settled on the throne of Egypt, sought to eliminate emirs he saw as rivals through a witch hunt. By order of Sultan Aybek again, Qutuz, an important commander of the Mamluks and a close friend of Baibars, Farasaddin Aktay, was killed, and Baibars barely escaped assassination by fleeing to Damascus with his friends. Later, although Baibars attempted a few coups against Aybek, these efforts failed because Aybek was well protected by Turkic soldiers. Baybars' fortune changed with Hülagü's attempt to invade the Syrian region. At this time, Sultan Aybek was killed, and his successor, Saifuddin Qutuz, called for unity among the emirs in Aleppo to confront the real enemy. Despite seeking revenge against the new Sultan Qutuz, Baybars accepted this call. Thus, Baybars, along with his warrior Turkic friends Kalavun and Sungur al-Askar, moved towards Cairo. During this period, the king of Cilician Armenia, Hetum, who had traditionally aligned himself with the strongest power, broke his allegiance to the Turks and joined the Mongols invading Anatolia under Hülagü's command, thus coming under their protection. On the other hand, Hülagü, because both his wife and mother, as well as his supreme commander Kitbuka, a Kipchak Naiman Turk, were Nestorian Christians, adopted a stance against Islam that was even harsher than that of the Crusaders. Thus, he formed a mixed Mongol army of Armenians and Georgians, invaded Damascus, and reached Gaza, next to Egypt. Before advancing on Egypt, Hülagü sent a harsh letter to Sultan Qutuz of Egypt, warning him explicitly that if he did not surrender and pledge allegiance, his fate would be the same as Baghdad's. Hülagü's letter, filled with severe threats and insults, was drafted as follows. From the east and west, the King of Kings, the mighty Khan, for your sake, O God, you who have ordered the earth and raised the heavens. Malik Muzaffar Qutuz, descendant of slaves who fled before our swords, enjoyed the tranquility of this land, and then killed its rulers, should know well, as do the people of his state and kingdom in Egypt and neighboring countries, that we are God's army on earth. He created us from his wrath and mobilized us against those who incur his wrath. There are examples in all lands that will warn you and deter you from challenging our resolve. Be warned by the fate of others, and submit your power to us before the veil is torn, without regret and before your mistakes return to you. For we do not pity those who weep, nor do we show mercy to those who complain. You have heard how we conquer lands, cleanse the earth of corruption, and kill many people. Think about what has happened to countries that opposed us. You must have heard how we defeated one of the richest kingdoms in the world, and removed it from the earth like a defective stain. You will flee, and we will chase. Which land can shelter you? Which route can save you? Which country can protect you? There is no escape from our swords, and you cannot avoid fearing us because our horses are swift. Our arrows pierce through, our swords are like thunder, our hearts are like rock, and our numbers are like the sand. Fortresses cannot stand against us. Armies are useless in battle against us. Your prayers to Allah will not benefit you against us. Your prayers against us will not be accepted because you consume the forbidden. Your words are vile. You betray your oaths and promises. Disobedience and division reign among you. Know that your end will be disgrace and humiliation. Indeed, those who unjustly enjoin sovereignty on earth and cause corruption will be punished with a humiliating punishment today. Al-Ahqaf 20. The wrongdoers and the disbelievers will soon know what ultimate fate awaits them. Ashuara 27. Those who declare war against us will regret. Those who seek our protection will be safe. If you submit to our commands and conditions, your rights and duties will be the same as ours. We do not act upon tears. Lamentations do not move us. Only pleading to us will provide you protection. Hasten your reply before the fire of war is ignited. If you resist, you will face terrible disasters. We will demolish your mosques and reveal the weakness of the Allah you believe in. Then, we will kill your children and your elderly together. You are the only enemy we are forced to march against now. If you resist, you will be destroyed. Do not destroy yourselves with your own hands. The warned person must be cautious. You believe we are infidels, and we believe you are immoral. God, who determines and judges everything, has incited us against you. What is much for you is little for us. What is honorable for you is low for us. Your kings can expect nothing but humiliation from us. Therefore, do not delay. Respond to us immediately before the fire of war is lit and the spark is cast upon you. Otherwise, you will see neither dignity, comfort, protection, nor refuge from us, and you will suffer the most terrible calamity at our hands, and your lands will be emptied of you. By writing to you, we have treated you fairly and awakened you with a warning. We have no other purpose from you. Let there be peace with us, with you, and with everyone who follows divine guidance, fears the consequences of evil, and obeys the Supreme King. Say to Egypt that Hülagü has come with swords drawn from their scabbards. The strongest of its people will be humble, and their children will be sent to join the elderly." Upon reading the letter, Sultan Qutuz responded to Hülagü, whom he regarded as a psychopath, by decapitating the Mongol emissaries on the spot and hanging their heads on the gates of Cairo as a message for Hülagü, should he dare to come. Although Qutuz did not fear him, Hülagü was not merely making empty threats. What happened in Baghdad was essentially a preview of what he intended to do in Egypt. However, at this critical moment, Hülagü's brother, Hülagü Khan, died while on a campaign in China, forcing Hülagü to return to Mongolia with part of his army to participate in the power struggle, thus sparing the Turks ruling Egypt from the impending doom of a 150,000-strong Mongol army with divine intervention. Had this not been a pivotal moment that could have altered the fate of the Islamic world, despite Qutuz's and the Turkic warriors' sacrifices, Hülagü's intentions to massacre Muslims, from infants in cradles to the elderly on their deathbeds, could have been realized. And perhaps, due to this man's actions, the Islamic world might have turned into Christian territories within a few years. Ultimately, Kitbukanoyan, a Nestorian Christian and the supreme commander, was left with a Mongol force of 10 to 15,000 to annihilate the Mamluks before withdrawing. Kitbuka was accompanied by his forces, as well as Christian allies including Armenians, Georgians, and the Crusader French. However, attributing Hülagü's withdrawal to a single reason would be incorrect. The region had long been facing logistical problems, with the Mongol army and their horses struggling to find sufficient food and fodder. Moreover, retreating to cooler areas during the hot summer months was almost a necessity in Mongol tradition. Adding to this, the declaration of war against him by his cousin Hülagü Khan, who had converted to Islam, left Hülagü in a state of confusion. In this first video of our series, consisting of 3 videos, we closely examine the process leading step by step to the leadership of Baibars, who prevented the extinction of Islam against the Crusaders and Mongols. In the upcoming video, we will take a closer look at the process by which Baibars, by joining forces with Hülagü Khan, gradually led to the disintegration of the Mongol Empire. Feel free to ask in the comments if you have any questions. You can also share your opinions and requests with us. Stay tuned for many more videos. If you like this, don't forget to like and share the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Wishing to see you on beautiful and healthy days. Take care and stay healthy. Goodbye.